Ask each and every one of you to concisely and clearly give me the description of the job that you are running for.
Well, I can start. So, my name's Danielle. I'm running for president for Kingspark. And in my opinion, and from what I have experienced with working with the president's role is to be that leadership role and visionary for the organization. It's also the duty of the president to sit on numerous committees, either in person or sending a delegate to take their place. It's also a big part of the president's role to take the relationship with the university administration outside of the VP education role. As well, mental health, orientation, things like that also fall under my portfolio. Take it away.
Sure. So, my name is Maz, running for VP Internal, and from my best understanding, the VP Internal oversees the Fed's Campus Life Department, which in turn oversees the services that Feds operates, the clubs, and relationships with, or society relations, and relations with all the satellite campuses and colleges. In addition to that, I think that's most of what the VP Internal does. There's a lot of the committees that they sit on related to all these things, obviously. But yeah, in a nutshell, I think that's about it.
I'm Manish, and I'm running for VP Education. So education is in my title, so academics is what I'll be dealing with, and lobbying and advocating on the municipal, federal, and provincial level. And my life is just going to be all about sitting on committees and pretty much being the forefront on students' academic issues and everything else. The services that students pay for, so the fees, heavily involved with the fees students pay.
So as Vice President of Operations and Finance, my role will be to deal with the money. I will approve the budget, make sure the budget is intact and done properly. I will also oversee all the commercial services, which includes Bomber, Wasabi, Campus Mobile, all of those. And I will also oversee the support areas, so marketing, IT, and accounting. And I will also act as sort of the HR representative in terms of dealing with staffing issues and making sure everything within the organization is running properly and smoothly.
I'll start. Ben, your platform has only two specific goals: more electrical outlets in the SLC and completing an audit that is already underway. You said in the Fed's debate, that you want to be more efficient by having less platform points. But are you doing this at the expense of coming up with new ideas and improvements?
I don't believe so. I really feel that this role, and I think it can be said about all the executive roles, in that we don't necessarily need to be the visionaries. The students are who is supposed to be giving the input, and we are supposed to be acting on their behalf. Even just through this election, I've learned a lot about what students want and their feelings on certain issues. And those are things that I have taken into consideration. When I created the platform, my main goal was not promising things that I couldn't come through on. And although it is a very small platform, it's obviously one that I can easily attain. And in the role of VPOF, like I've said many, many times, being efficient allows me to support the other executive as well as the company as a whole, in terms of being that support role to empower the managers and make sure that they are being accountable as well.
Okay. You say you've learned some stuff and got some ideas from students during your campaign. Could you share us some examples?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's been a lot of talk around the idea of school spirit and working with the athletics department to sort of build that up. Fortunately, I've had ties with the athletics department, so that is one area where I would like to see our commercial services, as well as our support areas, so marketing specifically, start to work with the Warrior Athletics department and sort of build that relationship more to what it is right now. I've also learned quite a bit about the student space issue in terms of how clubs and services would like the space allotted. And working closely with the VP internal candidate, I can hopefully make some of those dreams a reality. Obviously there's priorities to be set, but those are sort of the things that I've been learning and picking up along the way.
And sorry, what do you mean by the allocation of space? What are these societies and clubs asking for?
So when we've been talking to the off-campus community, WPERG isn't necessarily one of the Fed services, but it's one of the stakeholders within the SLC, as well as CRT. These groups have kind of been eyeing other spaces in the SLC and saying, hey, like, we could put that space to good use. And I really think that it would be it's in Fed's best interest to support those services to the best of our abilities, because we have this asset, which is the SLC, and we need to use it to the benefit of students as much as possible.
My question kind of jumps off what you said about school spirit. So you mentioned, Danielle mentioned this during the debate yesterday, about increasing the collaboration between Feds and athletics to promote school spirit.
Yep.
So how do you feel about Feds covering the Warriors logo in the basement of the SLC with the Feds logo when they took over?
Personally, I didn't really like it. I like the fact that the Warrior brand was there. From an organizational standpoint, I understand exactly why Feds did it, because Feds needs to start getting their name out there and having students understand exactly what we do and what we provide to students is a huge part of, I think, Fed's role and Fed's goals at least should be aligned with this over the next coming year. And I think in terms of my platform points on marketing and revisioning that communication process, that goes along with it. We need to tell students what we do, because they don't know, and with that comes confusion, and confusion turns to questioning, and questioning when they don't get the right answers turns to downright hatred, and people don't like Feds in a lot of parts of this campus, and that's something that we need to work on.
So how will you get students to know what Feds does?
I really think that when you look at and when I say marketing, I don't mean just like advertisements and promotions. I mean the entire vehicle that is Feds in terms of its service provision. We really need to revision the way that we communicate to students right from day one. So if you can take a theoretical student and move them through their first and second and third and fourth year, how is Feds talking to them at all those points? They come in orientation week and they get blasted with faculty this, faculty that, and then Feds all of a sudden squeaks in there on certain days and says, yeah, these are our events. But as soon as orientation week ends, and maybe they do or maybe they don't go to the welcome week events, Feds just kind of seems to drop them. And they get picked up by residents, and then once they leave residents, they're just kind of on their own and they deal with their faculty mostly. So I really think that Feds can look at our communication strategies and really look at how we can impact that student's life as they move through the course of their 4 or 5 years that they're here.
You've all emphasized social media and communication with students. You just held a Google Hangout that had no viewers. Are you now concerned that social media and student engagement through online platforms may be more difficult than you initially expected?
I can start, I guess.
Okay.
I think we were talking about this during the Google Hangout too, about how if we get elected we should look into something like this. However, I think with the benefit of having Feds marketing, advertising it would be more effective. Obviously there are challenges, and I think there needs to be issues that are being discussed need to be very relevant to students. If we were to say, we're just going to do a Google Hangout, you can ask us questions and stuff, maybe not so engaging with students, but if we said we want to talk about an X topic, which was very relevant, a very relevant issue, maybe we would be seeing more engagement.
So presumably you were talking about relevant issues for this one, and you didn't see much engagement. And your answer to that was kind of assuming that Fed's marketing will be able to increase the ability of Fed's social media efforts to reach students. Doesn't that sound like a bit of a circular answer?
I'm going to jump in here too. So with our Google Hangout, there is always challenges with any campaigning event in that students are concerned, oh, it's just a campaigning event. And also, Google Hangout isn't super popular as far as a new social media that people are always on, whereas Reddit, for example, could be something, oh, I can just post quickly. So I think making this more of something that came from Fed's marketing, I think was something you were trying to get through. So if Google Hangout, let's say, was a regular thing that Feds did, so every 2 weeks, let's say, they posted a Google Hangout, that would make it relevant across the board and would have each topic could be something that students, for example, the bus pass, like if they held a Google Hangout for why are we holding referendum, that kind of thing, you may get more student engagement. Also, from our perspective with technical difficulties, it was kind of a learning curve for us as well, and something now that we've learned about it, we may bring to Feds or to our individual networks as something that it could work in the future.
And I think for us as well, the Google Hangout was to fit a certain purpose for Team Spark, and we really want to portray the people that we are, and behind a Reddit page you can't really do that. Like, yes, you can talk back and forth, but everybody's questions and everybody's answers are edited and
it's just behind
reviewed.
the screen. Right?
Yeah, whereas like something like this is fantastic. Like we want to interact with people and we want to show people who we actually are. And I think you can kind of take that right into the whole Feds branding aspect as well. Like Feds is sometimes very standoffish in their branding, and when you look at the website, like a lot of times all it is like they'll be posting new news stories and there's a tile there for pictures, and sometimes the picture isn't even of what they're talking about, it's just like a Feds logo. And it goes a long way when you add personality and emotion to that brand and to the communication that you're making in terms of connecting with the people that you're trying to connect with. So that's what we were trying to do with the Google Hangout.
You did touch on it, but branding overall is the top part of your platform. It is the first thing mentioned on your cover page, improving Fed's visibility. Outside of maybe reducing confusion and potentially anger, what benefits do you think expanding the Fed's brand in the minds of students actually gives them?
So a lot of times we hear this, what is Feds? What am I even paying for? No, I don't really care about it, even though they're paying for it. And Ranish has mentioned this, if you're paying for it, you should use it. And I think really promoting this brand across campus gets to those people who may not always visit the office and see the executive firsthand. It gets them thinking about Feds, and if I have an issue as a student who knows nothing, but I know that Feds does a lot of things in my social media perspective, then can they do something for me with this issue I have? So that sort of relevance, it's like a go-to answer for them. Oh, Feds may be able to help me.
And once we see that increasing, I think we'll start to see more engagement of students with Feds, and that would translate to hopefully increased voter turnout. And I think when all of that happens, when someone is advocating to the university, lobbying the university, just having that fact where a lot of students are engaging with Feds, and you've been voted on by 25-30% of the student body rather than by a small percentage, then I think it adds to the advocating power you have when you go and lobby the university.
I think one of the other benefits as well is turning Feds into something that all, if not most, of the students at UW can relate to. I think when you look at the characteristics of our student body in terms of the people leaving every 4 months for co-op, the incredible like high pressure area that this campus is in terms of academic life, there really isn't too much for people to cling to other than like their faculty and their immediate friend group. So if we can use that branding to sort of create a theoretical safe space for people to come and have their opinions heard and voiced, I think we'll go a long way in terms of building trust here on campus, which I think is something that Feds really lack.
I have a question for Ramesh. During the Imprint hosted debate, you were asked the following question and didn't have an answer. There may be 3 elections, federal, provincial, and municipal, during your tenure. What's the number 1 student priority for each election? Do you have an answer for it now?
I do. That was just a lack of sleep and changing different hats through a weekend, but totally apologize. Okay, well, so at the provincial level, again, working hand in hand with USA and looking at tuition freezes and actually looking into ancillary fees and where the freezes should be made, because students should, like I sit on various committees at the university level, currently as senator and as president, and like looking at the university's budget and seeing how much the university is pitching in towards certain services and how much students are pitching in, where I'm trying to work out with Adam and other student representatives to see that, to kind of lobby that students shouldn't be paying 100% of a certain service. I don't know if I can say this out loud, but students shouldn't be paying for 100% of a certain service. So how do we break that down? How do we show that this is something that the university should be providing to all students, and why should students pitch in or whatnot? So at the provincial level, it would have to do with fees and freezing that. At the municipal level, working with the city of Waterloo, the region, so Kitchener-Waterloo region, creating more business incentives. So a marketing strategy for businesses to have more student engagement, so they don't think that we're just here for the 4 years or the 4 months just to use their services and not vote and just, I don't know, get 15% discounts as students and then leave the community. Like, we want to engage with the community, create that community bond. So I've been in contact with the city councilors, such as Melissa Durrell and Sean Strickland, and talking about the GRT and how buses need to be put in place. So if the UPass goes hand in hand with that. Like, if the fees do go up, there needs to be some kind of contract in place that it freezes that fee, so students are not paying so much more for it after 1 year or 2 years. And if fees do go up, like it is, more buses need to be in place. Later night loops, live scheduling, so students are not waiting out in the cold for 15 minutes if a bus is late. When they text it, they get that live, real-time schedule. So that would be at the municipal level. So working with the region, again, like having open street events, so, you know, live tours with university students just going around and having kiosks set up, so they do build that relationship. And at the federal level, CASA is in the works of whether we're staying or we're leaving, so advocating on behalf of international students and their visas and whatnot. So building that relationship with ministers, so even if we do choose to leave CASA, we still have that solid relationship and know who to directly contact in order to advocate on their behalf. So under federal, it would be solely on, like, not solely, but prioritizing international students' concerns. And municipal would be the whole community itself, and provincial would be tuition fees.
Jumping off after that. English is hard.
That's okay.
You said if we were to leave CASA, are you in support or in favor of leaving CASA? No.
Right now, I would say we are in favor of staying with CASA because we do have a large international student community, and having that strong relationship with the ministers, not having to work as, like, if we do leave, we would have access to some resources on that federal level, but directly advocating would take a lot of effort. And CASA is very valuable And I think if we do stay with them, I would obviously advocate into helping them, gear their initiatives towards specific tangible projects versus just overload of broad themes of some sort and not having the perfect recommendations or suggestions to make changes. So I think as a group, we did decide that we were in favor of staying with CASA because international students, we have a lot of them, and what more better way can we do the advocating on behalf?
I have a question for Maz. So something that you've brought up a lot in the debates is you're advocating for prayer space, and that it's your highest priority. So why is that?
So, I'll clarify that. So prayer space, now there's priorities internally within feds, and priorities outside that require lobbying the university on. When it comes to lobbying the university, as you may know, the VP Ed and the president do most of the lobbying. The VP Internal barely does any lobbying. So when the VP Internal does lobbying, it's usually on behalf of internal club services and societies. And I thought when it comes to lobbying the university that there's the Sikh Students Association, the Muslim Students Association have both voiced concern that prayer space has been a problem for them, and they're trying to engage with the university directly because the VP Internal didn't seem to be helping them that much. And I felt that as a VP Internal, I have that power within feds to be able to advocate on behalf of clubs like these, and that's why it would be a priority. And one of the counter arguments that was brought up was, what about mental health services and resources? And as you may have noticed from our platforms, that's one of our biggest priorities as a group, and most of the lobbying on that front is being done by the president. It's in our platform, and I'm focusing on lobbying the university on behalf of clubs and services and societies. And when it comes to that, lobbying the university, I think lobbying them on behalf of sustainable projects and groups that require prayer space would be a priority.
Okay. I guess jumping off that to Danielle, but everyone can jump in.
Yeah.
Mental health has been a huge topic this campaign.
Yeah.
Everyone has mentioned it. A big problem on campus is access to counselors. That's one of the biggest comments I think that comes from students. So as feds, you don't manage counseling services. So what are you going to do to address those student concerns?
So we did actually have a meeting with Dennis Huber, the VP Admin and Finance for the university, and I think again it comes back to our points on opening communication with different resources on campus and having those relationships, as Ben has mentioned, with having relationships with full-time staff, with athletics, with things like that goes across the board. So having a relationship with those people who do control counseling services and the staff that goes into it is definitely a big asset for our team. So we did meet with him, and there was definitely an interest in expanding the counseling services, and I know they are expanding their actual building, and so they're definitely using that as a priority to put more counseling services within it, and we were really happy to hear that response from him, and we're definitely advocating for that from Fed's perspective to administration.
Okay. What will you be doing within the Fed's portfolio yourselves to address mental health concerns on campus?
So we talked a lot about a lot of our platform points in our tangible action plans do benefit anybody who is experiencing mental health issues and different stresses on campus. And although not all of them use the word mental or the expression mental health, we do feel that a lot of our projects do address things. From the perspective of our portfolios, we really want to have those processes detailed for students on if they feel this, and this, or if they're in this situation, where can they go? There's so many different resources on campus, and we felt that it was a bit disconnected in well, I'm feeling this, what do I do? And so just laying out those processes, laying out those resources and saying, hey students, we're feds and we may not be able to counsel you, but this is where you can go to get help on whatever issues you're feeling. And not directing as like, A go here, B go here, but more just a broad, if you're feeling any stress or if you're feeling this kind of feelings, you can go to these resources, and this is the process to do so.
Okay, I believe that was the plan with the creation of the Fed's Mental Health Committee that was recently dissolved because it wasn't doing anything tangible. So how will your plan be different than that plan was?
So I can speak to that. I was on the Fed's Mental Health Committee.
Oh, okay.
So that's perfect. Yeah, to basically answer that, we had a committee that was set up, and it was called the Mental Health Committee. And I feel that there was a lack of oversight on the part of feds on prioritizing what needed to be done. We had a bunch of passionate students on mental health, including myself, Dia, Dana, and everyone who was on the committee, and we wanted to really look into this. And we spent a lot of time looking at a lot of the policy papers. We saw policy papers on mental health, the university research that was done on mental health. We spent some time speaking with Campus Wellness and Mark Beadle. And I think it comes back to this, where there was a lack of action items for us, and a lack of what needs to be done from an overall strategic point of view that really led to nothing happening. Gosh, it's really late in the day.
English, it's tough.
And yeah, once we got back from winter break, we found out that the committee would no longer exist. So we were kind of disappointed, but we would hope now that some kind of strategic action items and plan is put into place to address these issues.
I think we're open to different mediums of addressing mental wellness as a whole. Should I mention it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, so before the Imprint debate, I took part in a startup weekend, and the platform that we created was an online basis of connecting counseling services to university students directly. So it's a platform made for universities to incorporate. So having counseling services available 24/7, and students can connect to them anonymously, but they're being connected through the EduRoam network itself. So it is a safe space, but the student doesn't feel judged, or it removes that stigma of walking into an office and then walking out of counseling services kind of thing. So even because I think I've been serving on that budgeting committee on the university level, and knowing how the budgets are being allocated for such thing as counseling services, even if this doesn't work out for me, I would be advocating for mental health and mental wellness, and telling the university look beyond just an office space or a building for counseling services. Look online. Students are always engaging online. It's easier to engage with the counselor via text and anonymously. This is stressing me out, and that just takes that away. So that might lessen the lineups and appointments at counseling services itself. So just improving that at both ends. So looking at different mediums, and not just let's just expand the offices, let's just expand buildings and whatnot. So
and what is this wonderful thing called?
It's called Buddy Bench, because there's always room on this buddy bench. That was a pitch, but there was a reason for my absent-mindedness on that day.
And just to wrap up in relation to your question, under my portfolio, I think it's really a priority of the president to make this a priority within the organization, and to empower these people that are on such committees, if there are any in the future, to streamline it into action points, and what are we doing here, and what is our purpose towards mental health, and what do we hope to accomplish from Fed's perspective. So that's just something I wanted to add in to Maz's point.
So moving along, what do you think about the possibility of the Fed's Board of Directors going confidential?
Ooh, good question.
This one.
I actually feel quite strongly on this subject, so I'm going to talk through it if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So the whole thing from my perspective was the board of directors, what they do, what happens in the meetings, what decisions are made, all of that is published to students, and anything that is decided or written or anything during the meeting would be published to students. So there would be that transparency there. My concern was that there wasn't a huge advantage to having a gallery, which was the only thing that would be taken away if it went to sort of a confidential or more closed session. I don't support completely confidential and that nothing is accessible to students. I still believe that they should be able to access all the information that happens from a board's level. But because the gallery can't make input into the decisions, because it is the elected board members who make the final call, I think that it was just sort of an interest of a safe space, and they were able to collaborate and make those educated decisions by working off each other for the best interests of the organization and students.
I think we looked at different models at different universities, like Western, for example. They post a YouTube, they post a video of their board meeting after. So like, you have access to the entire meeting. It's just that there is no actual gallery during the meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we also talked about that as well as an option.
Yeah.
I understand there is a difference, but if you're just going to post a video of the whole meeting, what is the big difference between having someone sitting there not participating?
Yeah.
They can just watch it.
I said this in the board meeting too. Like, I haven't honestly been on board long enough to know I abstained from the vote, obviously. But there isn't enough. I don't have enough experience to know like how gallery would affect people's behavior on board. But like other executives and other members of the board did point out that sometimes like matters come up where it's more comfortable to talk about those matters within a group of people whom you've worked with for a long time as part of the board, and without having people like watching over you. That was just one thing that they mentioned that I think would be the difference.
When it came to the comfort level of the board members and the comfort level of students having easy and open access to your guys' meetings, what would you rank the priority between those two?
So I think the video option and making all those resources available helps students, like sort of bridges the gap between those two things, in my opinion. And I think that it was sort of a happy medium in that it wasn't fully confidential, yet it wasn't completely open. And a lot of board of directors meetings within non-for-profit and businesses in general typically aren't open. And again, there wasn't, I haven't been on board long enough, same as Maz, but from what I've seen, the gallery wasn't an engaged thing. Like, students weren't actively coming to it from what I saw in the couple of months that I've been on board. So that was just kind of my opinion on the direction of where it
I
was.
think if we saw that a lot of students were like really interested in coming to sitting on the board meetings, that would indicate that there is a huge interest in this, and like that's something we would want to consider then, like to keep the meetings open.
So would you consider making that an option if you were elected, advertising board meetings more? Because they're not very highly advertised to students. They were just recently moved to a more accessible room in the SLC. They used to be in the Fed's office. It was not easy to find sometimes. So is that something, if that's a deal breaker for you, would you do that, advertise the meetings more and try to get more student engagement?
Yeah.
I think, sorry, I'll speak for the group in that I think our whole platform kind of speaks to student engagement, so we'd kind of be hypocritical to say that no, that we wouldn't allow it. I think obviously there's a point where you need to look at the efficiency of the group, and maybe having other people there in terms of the comfort level makes the board inefficient. But I think if we were, as we are now, being asked candidly, would you do it? Then yeah, absolutely, we'd open it up.
Like as of right now, the board is still an open place, and people can come to it. And like we have no reason to not like reveal where the meetings are happening, what times they're happening at. Yeah.
So should it remain open, we definitely make that a priority for student engagement, if that was what the board decided.
Well, and if it's something that students are interested in, like it can be put through like a trial run almost, like advertise and see what kind of response you get, and make it.
All right. Well, you know, we're asking that question obviously as a newspaper, and we want access to the board meeting.
Yeah.
So that leads into my next question. Are you willing to have an open line of communication with Imprint, specifically on camera? Are you willing to say that you can contact you directly through email and phone for questions and comments without having to go through Fed's mediation?
Yeah, and we had a conversation about this a few weeks or so ago, and I have been in Feds long enough to know how it works. Sometimes Imprint has tried to contact me, and I had to not be accepting of the contact, and we had to go through the media person, and so I feel that going through the media person may be a good option for volunteers and stuff, but I feel like when it comes to the exec, I think they're responsible enough, they are accountable to students enough to for a media group like Imprint who reports to the students to be able to contact them directly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And having like such a large student body that reads the Imprint, and that's the way they access information about what's going on.
Yeah.
I think it should be a responsibility of an executive to, whether they're being questioned about their actions or they're doing something great or not something great. Great English it is tough. Especially talking to a newspaper.
Not to spread the virus.
Please don't quote
Yeah,
me.
more than just like for you guys, obviously it's beneficial to have access to executives without going through like 10 people, but more than that, Fed serves the students, and Imprint provides news to the students, and therefore by providing Imprint easy access to the executives, we are doing our job of being accountable to the students by being transparent, of being more visible and stuff. So like all the things that we want to do as Feds, we are doing that.
And actually listening to the students, because once an article goes up or someone reads it, smiling.
You guys are great discussion makers. I'm just listening.
No, so then there's more engagement, either online, like someone
absolutely.
reads an article and then they just bash about it online or something, then we know that we're actually listening to them, or we're not listening to them, or they're actually engaging. So we're actually hitting one of our platform points or our themes of we want to listen to students, like we want to be the forefront of being the students' voices. So if we're heard through a newspaper and
it starts from the top down. Like when we look at the transparency of the organization, it starts at the top.
We do something really good. We want to have Imprint come over and so that we can show it off. And at the same, like, if that's being done, then if we do something stupid, then like it would be fair for you guys to come and have that same kind of access and be able to report that.
Checks and balances.
And just to wrap up what
go for it.
my teammates are saying.
Clearly, we feel pretty strongly about it.
I think we've touched on it that like it does bring the execs more visible to campus, and just based on the conversations we've had with student leaders and just general students on campus, there is that disconnect between I've read Imprint, but I have no idea what the exec are thinking, and I think that sort of connects it and has a streamline of communication to a different audience that maybe the exec don't.
Yeah,
So we can phone and email you directly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I give you my personal number right now?
I was going to say, the door will be
Maybe
open.
not on the video. I think Megan will ask
One
the last
final question. Final question? Okay, so this one's for Ben.
Okay.
This is on an OMGUW post that was made this week. And I'm quoting the post.
Okay.
My vote goes to Ben because he is the best looking candidate. Fuck you for disagreeing. So people in the comments section were saying that you posted this yourself, and would you like to respond to those allegations?
Absolutely no. I've been on the site, but I've never actually posted to the site. So
I also
no.
I just want to add a comment that I think out of all four of us, he's the most uncomfortable with any direct "you are popular, you are good looking," anything like that. So I would like to advocate that he did not post.
I wasn't even on Facebook up until I think December, like middle of December.
And we were like,
We had to be. We were like, dude, you're gonna campaign, so like,
yeah.
you need some Facebook.
I did, yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
That wasn't
you.
so bad.